Welcome to Kitchen Uncovered. I'm Chef Andrew Nicholson of the Culinary Institute of Canada. Today at Annie's Table Culinary Studio in New London, Prince Edward Island. Today's guest chef, Eric Palmer, recent graduate of the culinary program. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Chef. Glad to be here.
So, Eric, what have you been doing since graduation? You just graduated recently, right?
Yeah, it was about a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
So recently I had a chance to go through Hong College to some competitions. So I represented the school in Halifax.
Yep.
I represented the school also in Toronto, and then I represented Canada in Michigan, the Nations Cup.
For the Nations Cup.
Yeah.
And good experiences all through?
Yeah, they were great. I got to travel. We ate at some great restaurants. It was a great experience. Yeah, highly recommend.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So what have you been doing the last couple of years at the school? Because you've been working on our garden, right?
Yeah, so I've been working at the community garden at the Culinary Institute, providing veg and herbs for the loose mod dining room as well as the banquets department. Just working with some pretty cool ingredients, harvesting things whenever they weren't typically harvested, just to kind of, play around with them a bit.
Yeah.
It definitely is influenced by cooking style, and I definitely use some unique ingredients from the garden now more than I ever did.
And it's a bit of a trendy thing now with a lot of restaurants growing their own herbs and
Absolutely.
gardens and having
like
little rooftops and stuff
things
like
like
that.
microgreens that places like big suppliers have been producing for a little while, but they're still not really well used. Some places just kind of like top plates with them, just all with no real regard to them. But there's many different varieties and different flavors that you can work into your dish and use to complement your dish.
And today you're going to show us a salad from all the garden ingredients.
Yeah, absolutely. It's got like 14 components or something like that, and all but 2 are from the garden.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what else are we going to do on the show today?
Also on the show, we're going to do a smoked salmon terrine, which relates a lot to my trip to Toronto.
Okay.
I did a lot of terrines up there in the competition.
Yeah.
And then we're just going to do a flat crust pizza on a pizza stone in the oven with, and that's just kind of something that me and my family like to eat a lot. And
one of your favorite dishes.
Absolutely.
All right.
Yeah.
So let's get started. So
okay.
We're going to start with a fresh garden salad, and then these are all ingredients just in our community garden at the school.
Yes. So the olive oil and the goat cheese spread, obviously, I did not grow.
Right.
Nor the pepper and salt, but beyond that, it's all me.
Right on.
So me and the garden.
In the garden. And
Yep.
Jack Wheeler is one of our instructors. Is a
Absolutely.
big
Yeah.
promoter of that, right?
He's the driving force behind the garden.
Yeah.
I was lucky enough to grab a hold.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. All right.
Yeah.
So you're going to do a modern presentation for us too, and show us just how to use things in their natural
just
set
gonna
and different flavors, how they combine.
Play around and hope the dish turns out.
Okay.
Yeah. So first we're going to take our goat cheese spread,
Yep.
and this is just goat cheese and cream blended together with a little bit of xanthan gum.
Like a whipping cream?
Not quite like a whipping cream. It was more like we melted them together and then just until they came together.
Okay.
And then I did aerate it a bit just by hand with a spatula, just so it was nice and pliable.
Yeah.
So it would make a nice little drag on the plate.
Okay. And what type of ratio are you talking with the cream to?
So for the
cheese?
cream to goat cheese, it was 3 parts goat cheese to 2 parts cream.
Okay.
By volume, and then just a sprinkle of xanthan gum. To give an example, this was made originally in a full liter batch. So there's 600 milliliters of goat cheese, 400 milliliters of cream, and then 1 teaspoon of xanthan gum.
Okay,
So
cool.
very little.
Right on.
Yeah. So yeah, we're just going to start with this.
Yeah.
And we're just going to do.
So this is like a salad dressing or a binder for the salad?
Yeah, kind of like an anchor for it.
Okay.
So we're just going to do it right up there on the edge, and from there we're going to build our salad onto here, and it will help us and it will anchor everything down, so it won't blow away.
Right.
Yeah. Perfect. So first we're going to start with a little bit of salt and pepper just on the goat cheese. It was a little. It just needed a little more seasoning.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So just a bit.
Yeah.
And then we're going to go right into the cherry tomatoes. And these are from, the orange ones are from my garden, and actually the red ones are from Annie's Table garden.
Oh, good.
So it's just right that
outside.
door over there,
Yeah.
yeah. So we're just going to place them down, and odd numbers is another thing that's good in plating. There's lots of reasons that I've heard over the years, but it just looks better. I don't really care. It just looks better. Yeah. So from there, we're going to go into these lovely carrots that were harvested quite early, obviously.
Yeah.
Most
people let them grow into larger carrots.
Into carrots, yeah.
Right.
So we grew them just to this, and we sewed them very thick so we could thin them out and whenever they're about this size.
Right.
So they're very nice, and the greens are edible as well, and they've got a nice carrot flavor to them as well. So the
you
way
leave
that
the
we're
greens
gonna,
on?
yeah, we're gonna leave the greens on, and the way we're gonna plate it is we're gonna try and leave the actual carrot part out, so it doesn't get buried by the rest of the stuff.
Okay.
So we're just gonna start laying things down, and we're gonna kind of follow the curve of the plate and of the drag there.
Right.
And we're just gonna plate some. We're just gonna put some carrots down, you know, just and we're gonna try and keep the greens on the plate, just because that's a little.
And you find
far.
that a lot of the more modern plate presentations are getting kind of to the edge of the plate.
Yeah, absolutely.
More than to the center.
And some of the classical chefs and some of the chefs at the school still aren't fans of it, but sometimes they'll just let you run with it, which is good. So then from there, we're going to take the Mizuna, which is a bit of a more spicy green.
Okay. Like
kinda-
peppery?
Yeah, so kind of like an arugula almost.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're going to take that, and I left these just, I just pulled them right out of the ground and then cleaned them very well. So the root and everything is still on them. It's just kind of like a different way to do it.
Yeah, just like
So-
the baby greens or
Yeah,
or mix
exactly.
that you get now.
So we're going to just carefully place these on, you know, not really following any
Just following
real
the contours
pattern,
of the-
just
of the
working the
cheese
contours
mix
of the
then.
plate and the cheese.
Yeah.
Yep. So then we're just going to do that. And then from here, we've got some tatsoi. Again, this is, it's related to pak choi, which would be a bit bigger.
Yeah.
And these, again, were harvested very early, so they're very small, young, and delicious.
Okay.
Yeah, and they give a bit more texture, a bit more crunch to the plate.
And a little bit of sweetness to counterbalance the Mizuno a little bit.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just nice, and it's nice, it helps fill out the plate, you know.
Very light salad, very,
Very modern, very light.
but letting the flavors of the garden vegetables and
Absolutely,
and
yeah. You know,
lettuces.
we're not really, you know, disguising anything with a heavy dressing or anything, and you'll see that later. So next we've got some nasturtium leaf, and this is an edible flower. You know, a lot of people use the full flower or just the petal. I'm just going to do the petal today because it's nice to
Add
kind
some
of
color.
scatter it, and the flower itself is quite large for the salad. So we're just going to get, you know, a couple pieces on there. Nothing too major. And it's got a nice peppery sweetness to it as well. So, you know, it's just a nice addition flavor-wise to the salad. Here we have some nasturtium leaves, which same flavor, edible as well, and just kind of like a different thing. A lot of people use them almost as lily pads.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So there's quite a few dishes based off that, and we're just going to kind of place them again, you know, just wherever we want, really.
Yeah.
And you can kind of mix it up, going upside down and right side up, just to kind of play around with
some
it.
colors.
Yep. So then from there, we're going to go on to our pansies.
Yep.
And these again are just an edible flower, just a nice little bit of color. You know, just going to hide them in there. And then from there, we've got a marigold, and there's edible and there's non-edible marigolds.
Okay. So you have to be careful.
So you have to be careful, but these
Are they
obviously are the edible ones. Yeah. So
counting on us.
we're gonna pull off some of the petals, and we're just gonna kind of sprinkle them on, just wherever they fall. And then the last thing from the garden is this. It's lamb's quarter, and you can get this a lot from foragers.
Yeah.
But we were fortunate enough to have this grow as a weed. So
A lot of people don't recognize it. It's
yeah, a lot of
kinda-
people don't recognize it, and you know, it was just kind of growing. And then one day, somebody pointed out to me, and I was like, "Oh, like that's great!" You know, free product.
Something else we can put on the
Yes,
menu.
essentially. So, you know, they're very, very small, nice and lemony almost. So we're just gonna do a little bit, and we've got the leaves here as well as the seed pods, just as kind of like a different, you know, a different thing.
And the other thing people don't think of is the dandelion greens when they're young.
Yeah, so
Before
it's the same
before
kind
they
of deal.
flower and
Yeah,
put a
so
seed,
it's,
they're not
you know,
as-
it's just-
they get bitter, but
It's what people would consider a weed, but
Sometimes
it's also
it's-
edible.
yeah.
As long as you don't have too much pesticides on
Right.
it. Yeah. So yeah, we're just gonna, you know, place this down a little bit, throw down the seed pods, you know, a couple more of the greens, and then to finish it, we're just gonna do a little bit of olive oil on top. Yep. And just straight up olive oil, no.
Okay, just like that.
Yeah, just like that.
Beautiful, very modern. All the ingredients from your garden. Don't go away. We come right back. We're gonna do salmon terrines. Beauty.
Thanks.
back to Kitchen Uncovered. I'm Chef Andrew Nicholson of the Culinary Institute of Canada. Today at Annie's Table Culinary Studio in New London, Prince Edward Island. Today's chef, graduated student Eric Palmer.
Hello, Chef.
So today we're featuring fresh garden items and things you've done in competition.
Yeah.
So we've done our salad, and now we're going to do a smoked salmon terrine.
Yes. So in Toronto, my portion on the team was I was in charge of the banquet plate. So it was 3 different terrines, 3 different garnishes, 1 for each terrine, and a large salad. So we really had very specialized terrines for it. They all need to be different shapes and look different, and have different garnish. So we're just going to do a simple rustic one today. It's going to be a smoked salmon terrine with cream cheese, and it's going to be uncooked, so there's no eggs or anything, no binder in it, other than the cream cheese. And so it's just a very easy, different way of serving smoked salmon.
Okay, so we have some different seasonings and spices here. So what do we got on the go here?
So over here we've got milk powder, caraway seeds, garlic powder, onion flakes, poppy seeds, and sesame seeds. And together we're going to toast them until the milk solids turn just like golden brown. And it's going to be reminiscent of an everything bagel. So it's almost like we're playing off of a cream cheese bagel that you get at, say, the Charlottetown Farmers Market.
And why are we using the milk powder instead of breadcrumbs?
We're going to use the milk powder just so it stays gluten-free. Also, it helps bind it to whatever you put it on. Okay. And it's just, it helps brown up and gives some of that cooked flavor. Okay, so I'm going to dump these into the sauté pan? Yep, no oil, just a dry pan. And you're just going to keep them moving constantly, and they'll just brown up, toast up, and the spices will release some of their aromas. Okay. Yeah. So any amount or ratios, or just? Yes, it's all pretty much 1 tablespoon of each, except for the sesame seeds. There's a little bit more, and probably about a half cup of the milk powder. And we'll have the recipe on the website. Okay, great. Yeah. So what's While you're doing that, I'm going to talk a little bit about the filling for our terrine, which is already made. But all it is a little bit of cream cheese, a little bit of cold smoked cured salmon, and some fine herbs, specifically chives and parsley, and a little bit of pepper. There's not going to be any salt in there, because the cure on the salmon took care of that. We've got enough seasoning in there. So you cured the salmon yourself? I did. In-house? Yep. So 24 hours in a salt sugar cure with a little bit of spices in it, and just got some weight on top of it, pressed it down, and then smoked it for 4 hours after curing it for 24. Okay. Yeah. So I'm going to grab I'm going to build the terrine now. Okay. So Caitlin, if you don't mind, the sliced salmon. Caitlin Bretton's a graduate student of the culinary, and she's giving us a hand today. Perfect, thanks. You're welcome. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to take it off our pan here, and I'm just going to torchon this. Okay, so what's torchon referred to? It's the style of a terrine, and it's where you roll it up quite tight, and you can tighten it on the board, and I will show you how to do this. Yeah, so we're going to take our filling. So this is, again, some of the smoked salmon that you smoked and you sliced it. Yeah, so I sliced this thin, got some nice slices, and then just cubed up the rest to go in the filling. And overlapped them so that they can kind of bind the mixture so they'll be our outside layer, and then we will roll it up, and then once we cut it, then you'll see the inside filling. Okay. Yeah. And this is you can do this ahead of time and leave it in the fridge because it needs a chance to. Absolutely. We warmed up the cream cheese just a bit so it'd be a bit more pliable and it wouldn't burn out the motor in our machine here. And you also want to be careful you don't cook the salmon from the heat of the motor as well. So if you let it run long enough that it would it would warm up the cream cheese, it would also kind of negatively affect our salmon. So all I'm going to do is just fold this over here, and I'm just going to start tightening it. And you just want it to be like a log. So there's, that's the first step of it done. And then I'm just going to give the board a little wipe here with a damp rag, and it'll help the saran wrap stick to it. So we're just going to roll that up. And thankfully, I don't have to be as precise as what I had to in Toronto. Yeah, it was judged pretty harshly on those, eh? Very harshly, yeah. So we had about 5 days prepping. So I had 5 days for 3 terrines and 3 garnishes and a salad. So it was quite, you really had to make sure it was perfect. Right. And it's a level of cooking that isn't done a whole lot. I mean, it is when you can afford it, but most people just
Yeah.
get it to 96% and call it a day.
Yeah.
Whereas this was you make 3 at 100 and then you choose the best one.
Choose the best one of those 3.
Yeah. So we just kind of rolled it up there, and we're gonna set this in the fridge so it sets up.
Okay.
Yeah.
And these are toasting up. This is going to take a few minutes with
Yeah,
the no pan. Just
it
keep
is.
things moving, right?
Yep.
So we have some done ahead
Yep.
of the and it should be nice even golden brown when you're
Yeah,
done.
just like that. And so, now that we have our finished product, let's fry off some capers.
Okay.
So, classic, bagel with cream cheese and smoked salmon. You gotta have some capers on there.
right.
Again, a little bit of saltiness. So what we're gonna do with them, rather than putting them in the filling,
Yeah.
we're gonna deep fry them, and so they crisp up a little bit and they almost puff up like popcorn.
Okay.
So it's just gonna be a nice little garnish on the plate.
So do we have to batter them or flour them or anything? We're just going to drop them
Just
right into the hot
straight
oil?
in. I would recommend letting them sit outside the brine for a little bit so you don't pour too much water into your hot oil.
Right.
But
point.
no, just fry them. They don't take very long, and then just right out onto a plate with paper towel.
And about 350 degree oil?
Yeah,
is
pretty
about what you want.
standard, like deep fryer temperature. Yeah,
Okay.
so we don't need a whole lot for the plate because they are still quite salty. So perfect. Yeah.
All right. And they should snapple crackle when they go in and then
Yep,
float.
absolutely. Yep. Yeah, so that's great.
So these will be crisp saltiness.
Yeah, and so just a nice little contrast. So we'll have this on the plate,
Okay.
as well as our crostinis. And between the two, they'll provide a nice little crunch to the plate. We'll have a nice, smoothness from this, and we'll have the powder on the bottom just to give everything bagel flavor.
Cool.
Yeah.
And you said the other dish we're going to do today is going to be a flat crust pizza?
Yeah, so we already have the dough made, and we've got some nice charcuterie items cut. We've got a sauce made that we will, we'll make it on camera.
Yep.
And yeah, other than that, it's pretty straightforward.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to finish off these capers, and we come right back. We're going to make flat crust pizza, so don't go away. Welcome back to Kitchen Uncovered. I'm Chef Andrew Nicholson of the Culinary Institute of Canada. Today at Annie's Table Culinary Studio in New London, Prince Edward Island. Guest chef today, Eric Palmer, recent graduate of the culinary. So today we're featuring fresh ingredients from the garden. We've done our salad. We have a smoked salmon terrine that we learned all about. We're going to do a plate presentation on that in just a second.
Yep.
And we're doing thin crust pizza.
Yes, absolutely. One of my favorites. This is how I like pizza personally. There's a million different ways to do it, a million different toppings. Today we're going to keep it simple.
Cool.
And it's going to be delicious. So we're going to start out with our pre-rolled
Pizza dough?
pizza dough. So we made this earlier.
Okay.
Super straightforward. Just a basic bread recipe. A little bit on the dry side as opposed to like a wet dough.
Okay.
With a little bit of olive oil in there, and just let it rest. And I find it's easier to roll out thin like this if it's cold.
Cold?
Cold. Yep.
Okay.
So make it the day ahead and throw it in the fridge.
Yeah. Now, how do you keep it from sticking to the pan when you're cooking it? Because that's a lot of issues that we have at home.
Here we have some what's called semolina flour. It's a durum wheat flour that's got a bit of texture to it.
Yeah.
It's not quite to the texture of cornmeal. It's a bit finer than that.
Okay.
But so we've coated our pizza peel quite liberally with it.
Okay.
And it just helps it from sticking around. And so whenever we go to put it on the stone, we can just get it right off.
Okay.
Yeah. So first things first, we're going to dock the pizza crust.
Okay.
And so we're not going to worry too much about it. We're just going to use a fork. So what this does is it prevents the pizza from pita-ing. So it's not going to be one giant bubble.
Okay.
Which can happen.
We want to knock out place for the air to vent.
Exactly.
Okay.
But you don't want to go too overboard because one of the best things about thin crust pizza is those lovely bubbles that form.
So you want small bubbles. You don't want the whole thing to bubble.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect.
And what do we use for sauce?
So we are going to use some fresh tomatoes and herbs cooked together in a sauce.
Okay.
And we're going to demonstrate that now, but we already have some made up because it's quite a bit of a process. So this
Right.
is something, again, that you can make ahead of time,
Okay.
even a week ahead. It'll store in the fridge, no issues. So what we're going to do is we're going to take some herbs, specifically rosemary and basil,
Okay.
some cherry tomatoes, some cut up garlic, and some olive oil. And we're just going to dump it all in the pan and slowly kind of, not simmer it because it's oil, but just slowly
Okay.
poach it. Yeah.
Okay. So is there anything particular we need?
I'm going to chop up some of this, yeah.
And I can just throw the tomatoes in the pot?
Yep.
So do we need high heat for that?
Nope, just like a medium to low heat would be great.
And we just leave them whole?
Yep.
Throw them in?
Yep.
And we take the leaves off the rosemary as well?
No, just use it whole. That way it's a lot easier to pick it out later if it's whole.
Okay.
Yep.
And the basil we're putting in early?
Same with the basil. Yeah, we'll get some more fresh basil into it after.
Okay.
Yeah.
So because we want the flavor and the oils to go in there. Now you could
Absolutely.
use dry for this as well, or is the fresh better?
You can use dry, but as always, fresh is better.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's your garlic as well.
All right.
And you've got some oil in that jug right there. If you just want to,
Putting all the ingredients in.
yeah, just throwing it all right in.
And then how much oil? Just enough to cover?
Just enough to cover, exactly.
And we're using olive oil.
Yep.
And this should poach for, we don't want this to boil, right? We just
No,
want this
no,
to
you
poach.
don't want to get so hot that it starts like deep frying them.
Okay.
It's like a low and slow poach. And I did this for half an hour. You can do it for a little bit less or a little more depending on how much time you have.
Okay.
Half an hour will
And
take
just
place.
kind of put it on the back of the stove on low to medium heat.
Yep.
And just forget about it and
Yep.
then come back.
And then they will cook to the point where the tomatoes will just disintegrate. So,
And then we just mash the whole thing together. There's no straining and no,
nope.
okay?
Yep. So
that's what we get.
We're just going to dump this all right on the pizza. I'm just going to spread it around. And actually, if you want to do that,
Sure. I'm good at that.
while you're doing that, I will get our Parm cheese that we're going to put on.
Okay?
So we're just going to microplane on, and we're not going to go too heavy, just a light covering of it.
Yeah.
So once you're done there, and it's important to go right to the edges because, pizza
want-
crust isn't really
Well,
that
kind
good.
of like a,
Rather get the sauce on everything.
right.
Yeah. Personal preference.
'Kay.
Yeah. So now I'm just going to do some of this, and while I'm doing this, if you want to
Fresh
grab
Parmesan?
the cured meat there,
Okay?
we're just going to use some cured pork loin and some locally made pepperoni.
Okay?
And just a little bit of each. You don't want to go too overboard. I like my pizzas dressed a little less than average.
Okay?
So we're just gonna kind of throw down. If you want to just scatter the pepperoni that we have there. And we don't have a whole lot, but it's just nice to get a little on there. And we won't have to worry too much about seasoning it since we've got some lovely cured meat on there. Yeah. I think
So
that's
these are kind of the flavors we're going for.
exactly.
So a lot of the flavors in the sauce and the fresh tomatoes,
yes.
right? And
Yeah.
then we just have the meats on there, vegetables.
Yep. And then just for a little extra flavor, we're gonna throw some fresh rosemary on there.
Uh-huh.
And then after that's done, it's ready for the oven.
So then that goes in the oven just like that. And about how long do we take?
About 5 or 6 minutes, depending on your oven. We've got a pizza stone in here, and the oven is preheated to 500 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's
so
quite
you want
hot.
to get the pizza stone preheated
Yes,
before you put the pizza on it.
absolutely.
Okay. All right, that's going in the oven.
Perfect.
This is going to start cooking, and now we're going to do the.
Want
I'll
to take
take that.
Perfect. Now we're going to cut up the salmon terrine and give it a quick plate.
Okay.
So, salmon terrine, rest in the fridge, firmed up. With the saran wrap on, we're going to slice it. The saran wrap will help it so we get nice slices and it
Yep.
won't fall apart.
Okay.
So we're just going to
So
gently...
this has been in the fridge overnight, couple hours,
You can do it overnight. You can do it a couple hours. It's really whatever you have time for.
as long as the cheese has time to firm up.
Yeah, exactly. And so obviously make sure that you take the saran wrap off after you cut the slices because you don't really want any of
Yeah.
your guests or you yourself to
But
be...
by slicing it with the saran wrap on, you're kind of keeping it from falling apart as you're slicing.
Yeah, so it's just, and this is, again, we're going very rustic with this, so it's...
It doesn't have to be smooth or any particular texture. You can keep the salmon in your food processor kind of chunky.
Yeah, exactly. So 3 slices should be good. This is just going to be a little plate. So we're going to take our spice mix, the everything bagel spice mix from earlier, and what we're just going to do is we're just going to throw it at the plate. Just like that.
Very neat.
Very neat. You're not going to make any mess. It's great.
Yep.
So from here, we're just going to do
And that's the all things bagel spice blend that we toasted off earlier.
Exactly, yeah. So
Okay.
we've got that. We've got some crostinis that we did earlier, just as something to kind of serve them with. We're just going to kind of, maybe stick one in, just kind of play around with it.
Right.
Do whatever
so
you
got
want.
Some nice crunch and texture
Yep.
on the.
And then
well.
we've got some of our deep fried capers that we had earlier. Just going to kind of get those on
And add
there.
a little bit of saltiness to it as well.
Exactly, yeah. And yeah, that's it.
Okay.
You can get some more fresh herbs on here if you'd like, but
Yeah.
that's pretty straightforward.
So we have our country style smoked salmon terrine, and then we have our fresh garden salad.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
And our pizza's in the oven.
Yep.
So on the pizza stone, once you get it hot, about how long does it take the thin crust pizza to cook?
It's about 5 to 6 minutes. Again, it really depends on your oven. Some ovens can go hotter than others, and some will recover the heat longer depending on how long you take to put it in.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you want to grab the pizza?
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah. All right, so then all we're gonna do to finish this is just take some of our fresh basil and just literally tear it right over it, right on top.
So why do we put the basil on now and not earlier when we were baking it?
It's a finer herb, and the baking would really ruin some of the more delicate flavors.
Okay.
So then from here, we're just going
so
to...
the heat of the pizza will release those oils and you get that
Exactly, yeah. So we're just gonna cut it up.
Okay.
And then that's
Ready
it.
to go. Beautiful.
Yeah.
So we have our thin crust pizza, everything fresh from the garden, our garden salad, as well as a smoked salmon terrine, house made. Thanks for joining us on the show today.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much, and thank you for joining us. Check out all the recipes, kitchenuncovered.com. I'm Chef Andrew Nicholson of the Culinary Institute. Catch you next time. Excellent.
Sweet.
Yeah.